Hello, hello, welcome in. Good afternoon, everyone. Come on into our next Phoenix Breathwork stories. We have got a wonderful, wonderful guest with us today. So if you're joining us live, come on in and say hello while we wait for our guest to join us. So those of you that haven't seen one of these before, I've started a new breathwork series on Instagram to share the power of breath work and how it can transform your life and how it can impact you in so many different ways. And I thought, who better to hear from than breath workers themselves? So we've got our guest joining us here. Let me just let him in. Here we go. We've got the wonderful Russell Storey from Connected Breath. Come on in, Russell. There we are. How are you doing?
I'm good, Jessie. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So good to see you.
And you? And you?
How are you doing?
I'm all right.
So
Yeah. Yes.
so Russell is actually joining us all the way from Perth, Australia. So what time are you on now?
It's just ticked over to 7 o'clock. So
Yeah,
we're
so not too bad.
settling in for the evening. We've got a big storm coming later tonight. So yeah, all happening over
Oh,
here, Jessie.
well, we've got a bit of sunshine here today, which, might sound like it should be in July, but we've had a bit of rain. So there you go. You can't predict the weather. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving us your time. I'm so excited to speak to you today. So as I was saying, this is a new breathwork series I started because I really wanted to highlight the power of breathwork and how breathwork can impact your life, change your life, transform your life. So I wanted to invite on people that have had those experiences and actually changed the course of their life because of that. So thank you for being here. Now, everyone, anyone who doesn't know Russell, Russell is a certified senior trainer within the Transformational Breath Foundation, and he is the founder of Connected Breath and is based out in Perth these days and running workshops one-to-one, still supporting people with breath on a daily basis, I believe. So, Russell, I would love to hand over to you and ask you just to share your journey with breath work. So, where was it that you first came across breath, and how has that taken you up to this point where you are now?
Um, well, I guess first to say thanks for having me on, Jessie. Thanks for asking me to come and share this with you. It took me a long way back. Let's put it that way. It took me back
Mm.
to I got into what was transformational breathing 11 years ago now. And I actually had an experience of breath work before that, some rebirthing work back in 2006. So I wasn't brand new to the breath in 2010 when I came across this form of breath work. But how do I say it? I've always had that kind of inquisitive side to my personality. I've always been curious about how people work and how our lives kind of unfold. And I moved to Scotland back in 2002. And so that was after I finished university here. I moved over to Scotland with a couple of friends. And I don't know what the plan was. It wasn't a well thought through plan, but it was a plan all the same. And then life kind of took over, and I got on with just, I guess I describe my life as ordinary is not really, you know what I mean by ordinary. It was just, there was nothing overly remarkable about what I was doing. I was working in financial services. I was working very hard, and then I met a girl that screwed everything up and kind of threw my plans up in the air for staying in Scotland. And so yeah, my professional background is organizational change, performance management, that type of thing, process design, and so on and so forth. And my partner at the time, she was a junior doctor, so we were kind of the professional couple doing our thing. I was traveling up and down the country over in the UK trying to sort of keep afloat, and she was burning the candle at both ends. And I got into a bunch of NLP training and the like that would sort of really um, fueled the sort of the personal development side of things, which I really sort of yeah, just had a real affinity for it. But unfortunately, even though I was doing kind of all the inner work, things just were getting progressively worse from an emotional standpoint. I think it's probably fair to
Mm.
say. I was burning out. My claim to fame, I tell this to people in a lot of my workshops, my claim to fame is I really burnt out before I was 30. And yeah, I was living abroad. I didn't have a support network, and my partner at the time was experiencing some very severe depression. I was the support network of one, and that came with it all the yeah the highs and lows that come from that kind of experience. And it was actually in, I guess I describe it, a moment of desperation of what the hell do I do now? And it was really, I was thinking about it before I joined, and it's a very humbling place, Jesse, to get to in life where you're like, I'm out of answers and I don't know what to do. I'm really stuck. And I had all the trappings of a successful life. We had a flat in the center of Edinburgh. I was one of those people who was tapped on the shoulder, about going, as high as I could in the organization that I was working with. But it just wasn't working. And even though I was learning all these things, even though I was helping a lot of other people and my career was going very, very well inside, it was a very, very different story. And yeah, it was a series of, dare we say, coincidences, of after that moment of really asking for help, that a breath kind of just appeared, or reappeared in my case. And I can remember very clearly I was sitting on the couch and I was just, yeah, I just didn't know what to do. And I was like, what do we do now? And what came through was breathe. You need to breathe. And because I'd experienced breath work before, it was like, yeah, I've done that.
Mm.
Tell me what's next.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I Googled conscious breathing and I came across this thing called transformational breathing, and I was like, what's that? And I ended up Googling some videos, and what came up on the video was this American lady named Judith Kravitz, who had this enormous kind of Midwest style haircut. And all these people were talking about this incredible thing called transformational breathing and transformational breath. And she stopped me with her line was, she said, full mental health is possible. And that was one of those moments, when it kind of just stops you in your tracks and you're like, all righty, that's a pretty serious claim,
Yeah, you've got my
and
attention, right?
yeah, she had my attention, and as I say, I was living in a very complex situation. I won't go into the
Mhm.
personal details of it, but it was a very, very complex situation, as most adult relationships tend to be. They have a degree of complexity to them, and so yeah, it was just okay. Well, I've got nothing to lose, and so I Googled transformational breath UK, and it turned out that my now dear friend and colleague Anne Marie was running a small workshop. She was one of three people in the UK at the time doing it. It was less than a mile in
Um,
my house, and it was happening next the following week. And so I was like, well, what have I got to lose to go and give this whatever it is a go? Because at that point, it was still people were saying breathing. It's all about breathing, and I'm like, well, I need more information. What does that actually mean? So I went along to this workshop and blew my mind, Jesse. Just blew my mind. And
yeah.
it's fair to say life has not been the same ever since that moment. And I remember I wrote a small piece for a friend's book, and it was in that sort of distillation of that process that I was like, your breathwork gave me hope. It gave me hope that
Mm.
there is a way through, because things were bad. Things were bad, and from my mental health was in rapid decline. It was proper burnout situation. I wasn't able to think like I used to be able to think. I wasn't able to react and respond and work at the level that I was used to working at. I'm a reasonably intellectual is not the right word, but cerebral kind of person. I've got
Mhm.
quite an inquisitive mind. I was reasonably successful at my career, and
Mhm.
and to be starting to lose mental faculties is a very, very scary place to get to. And in the situation that I was living with someone who had gone through that process, and I'd watched on relatively helplessly, it was like, well, if I go down, then we're screwed. So yeah, I went and did my breathing session, and I can remember just it was like I felt alive again. I felt
Yeah,
alive,
so that's what I
and
wanted to ask you when you say that
yeah,
that breathwork workshop that you went to, blew
yeah.
your mind. In what
Mm.
way? Like, what happened for you in that experience that you were like, wow.
It was, I could feel again. I could feel again.
Oh wow.
I, and that was, I was in a situation where I didn't want to feel a bunch of stuff. And it's interesting, in some of my work has manifested in working with men, and particularly around, the male experience of life is where we're quite often, whether we like it or not, sort of judged on our competence, our capability, our ability to perform in whichever capacity. And then to have that, um, as I say, just not really work, and realize that I had to get into the messy stuff of sorting out some of the stuff that was going on emotionally for me, what was going on in my heart, what was going on in my gut, and and so yeah, it was the most simple thing in the world. It was just breathe, just keep breathing. And I can remember really clearly, I don't know who it was because my eyes were closed, but they put their hand on my solar plexus and it was like my whole body just opened. My
Oh
whole body
wow.
just opened. And it was like I can feel things again, and it's safe to feel things again because, as I say, feeling things just wasn't helpful. So it was more, what's practical? What do we do about this? How do we solve the situation rather than, as I've since learned, sometimes life is about embracing the messiness of it, and learning to just accept our feelings, accept things exactly as they are. If you really jump to the heart of what breathwork is all about, right? It's all about how do we race to that acceptance of this is life in all its glory, and it's exactly where it's supposed to be. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was sorry.
No, I was going to say absolutely what you said there, the safety of feeling, because we can be
Mm,
so afraid of those feelings. So for you to feel safe to feel that, in breathwork, allowing you and supporting you in that, like so powerful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was incredible, and I was fortunate enough that the seminar program was happening shortly after.
Hmm.
And so I was like, sign me up. I just need to do more of this. I'm feeling better. I'm functioning. I'm getting back onto an even keel to a degree. Life was still extraordinarily complicated, but I was back and functioning. And I can remember actually the way these things work, Jesse. As I say, I was, without going into too much detail, I was working with one of the
Hmm.
banks that was going through the crunch, the financial crisis back in 2008 through to 11 or whatever that was. And I can remember the day before my seminar, I lost my temper. And I don't normally lose my temper, but I just got pushed over the edge and I yelled at my boss. And I think it was the first time in my professional career that I'd raised my voice and I just lost my shit completely. And anyway, I got along to the seminar. It was a Friday morning, running Friday to Monday. And I said to the lady running the seminar, I said, and this is, when you're saying something without a word of a lie, I was like, I'm going to quit my job on Tuesday. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. And I remember she looked at me, she put her hand on my knee and she looked at me and she goes, let's just see how we go over the weekend, huh? And it was perfect. It took me into all the messiness, all the, all my shit around feeling responsible for things that I'm not actually responsible for.
Hmm.
Um, I'd made a career essentially out of making other people's lives easier, and I'd taken on too much responsibility, and I was tipping over. And so yeah, so 4 days later, after that weekend of breath work, I was really just a new person, and I can't explain it any other way than that. It was like, okay, this is something that I need to learn more about, and I did, that was really the motivation for me. The motivation was never, I want to train people in this, I want to become a breath worker or anything like that. It was very, very selfish. The motivation was sort my life out, sort my problems out, and in doing that, hopefully help the person that I loved at the same time. And
Hmm.
I since learned that unfortunately it doesn't work that way, and it's always an inside job. We're always working with what's going on for us. So yeah, so that was me, and I met Amy, who you interviewed last week at that workshop, and we struck up a friendship and kept in touch, and then she barreled into doing her facilitator training, and my life kind of needed to catch up with what had happened inside of me. And so I was going through what was a very, very challenging process of we had a house together. As I say, I was living on the other side of the planet from all my support networks. So it was a very challenging time. But fortunately, Anne Marie ran a monthly group, and I was able to go along on a monthly basis, and just have that regular contact with the connected breathwork practice really kept me in the game over those couple of years. And then I was left with the decision of, do I come back to Australia or do I stay in the UK and learn more about this sort of mystical art form of breathwork, whatever it is, right? I still don't have a great definition for it because it's something that's just so
Right.
remarkable and all encompassing. But yeah, I described it to someone the other day. It's like, your life gets to the top of a roller coaster and you're buckled in, but
Right.
away it goes, and you just got to trust. You just trust the process, and it unfolds and it rolls and it twists and it turns. But you've got that centeredness and that connection with, I guess, your breath ultimately, and yourself. And that for me is what this work really is about: reconnecting people to their own innate sense of well-being, their own innate sense of
Mm.
um, connection, I suppose, for want of a better word.
So, so true. I was literally saying that the other day. I have to constantly remind myself that life is not linear because I'm very
Mm,
much like, right, this is where I want to get to. What's the quickest route there? And then it's like,
mm,
no, no, first you've got to go here and there. And it's like, it's never linear. So, this is where breath has supported me in helping me stay like grounded and, like you said, holding on as you go
mm,
for the ride rather than
mm,
trying to control that. And no, this isn't happening the way it's supposed to be happening. Why is this not working like it should? It's like, well,
totally.
actually, it is. It's working out perfectly, Jeff. It's you that needs to just chill a little bit, let go. There's just
Exactly right.
trust. Yeah.
Welcome to the last 10 years of my life, Jesse. That's what it's all been about, is just buckle up and away we go. And as I say, it's your questions you sent me through the other day got me thinking right away. This is 2011 we're talking about, 2010, 2011. So 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I'm still processing some of those experiences. I'm still making sense of the things that I was exposed to, of as well as I've said, I was working in a bank. I wore a suit to work. I would literally attend board meetings and, dealing with senior management, and, we dealt with the bigger issues and the real problems and stuff. And suddenly I'm in a room with people who are talking about things that I just had no frame of reference, start really
Mm.
genuinely opening up to a spiritual side of life, a spiritual dimension to our world. And that journey, I can remember, I was going to share with you, a good friend of mine, we got talking about, so when I started breathwork, I was the youngest by about 15 years in my first group, and I was also the only guy, so it was pretty, it was a pretty big stretch for me to to be part
Yeah,
of what
but
was going
amazing.
on. And they were just talking about things that I just didn't, I'd either dismissed as being nonsense, or
Mm.
it just wasn't part of my reality. But anyway, the people that I gravitated towards tended to be the more grounded people, and the more people that were, I guess I would describe them as kind of real worldy people. But I became good friends with one of my the people I met through the seminar. And anyway, we were talking about before I went over to Italy, which was the second part of the training. And I said to her, I said, if I come back believing in fairies, you can slap me.
I love that.
And she goes, yeah, I will. And anyway, I won't go into the details of what happened, but we caught up for lunch a couple of weeks after I got back, and she said, so what's with the fairies? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anymore. The walls of my reality have kind of have blended,
Yeah, stretching
and
that. Yeah.
to step into that world, and to have, and this is what breath work for me is, right, Jesse? It's direct spiritual experience. Direct spiritual experience. It's beyond. I guess I know, for definition's sake, I would say spiritual experience is anything that is beyond our ability to conceptualize or to comprehend or understand or make sense of. Similar to what you're talking about change being a non-linear process, and us having to surrender to there being multiple paths up the mountain, but also multiple ways of getting there too. And
Mm.
that's been, my biggest journey into surrender, of just letting go and trusting that, with the breath, the less I do, the more that happens. The more
I love
present I
that.
am, and the more that I trust the perfection of life. And as you know, when you're dealing with, we're working with breath sessions, some pretty intense things can happen. Some people can go to some pretty intense, you know, places, and to be with people through that experience is an extraordinary gift, and to have the privilege to witness people's transforming in front of your eyes. I'm sure you've seen that in your, the sessions you run, and the people you
Yeah.
work with. Of you can have people come in with extraordinary reservoirs of pain, and
Mm.
extraordinary, stories of hurt and anguish, and sometimes betrayal and abuse. And then they can breathe for an hour, and suddenly what was a problem is not a problem anymore. And they can't really explain why. You, as a facilitator, have no idea what's just happened for them. All you've done is help them continue to breathe. And it's extraordinary, it really is.
Yeah.
And so that's where I went. The tipping point for me was, I just needed to learn more. I was like, what the hell is this? And how does it work? And then sharing it with everybody was kind of a secondary aim. It was a secondary intention. It was more, I stayed in the UK because it gave me exposure to these people who had more experience in this world than I did. You know, they had more, they'd been, in like Judith's case, she'd been doing this work for 30 years or something before I got in touch with it. So you had some really experienced people who just, all these things seemed to be really normal to them. I think that's what created that kind of, I guess confusion's not the right word, but that need to assimilate, you know. And I can remember it took me, I used to joke, Jessie, you know, some people get tapped on the shoulder for this and they go, yay, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And I'm going
Right.
to breathe everybody. I was kind of more grabbed by the scruff of the neck and yoinked back through the hedge. You know, it was not on my radar to be doing this. And, but it became my spiritual path. You know,
Yeah.
that's how I would describe what breathwork is for me. It's my spiritual path. And that's included opening up to other dimensions of reality that sometimes very personal experiences, but you know, I often say to people, it just takes a lot more to shock me than it used to, you know. And
Mm.
I remember all the way up to, I went through some tricky times a couple of years ago, and I remember doing a session with Anne Marie, and and yeah, dare I say it? And I'll go for it. Why not? Hey, dare I say it? In my session, I had an angel appear, and it was the first time I'd had that kind of experience. You know, I'm a pretty grounded person. I don't tend to have, I have very deep and profound sessions, but not, I don't really, I just don't really operate in those realms. And and anyway, I had this vision, and it was this angel, and he leaned into me and took something out of me and said, "This isn't yours." And
Wow.
and that was it, you know. And I opened my eyes at the end of the session, and I looked at Anne Marie, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is all real, isn't it? This is all real." And
Wow.
she just smiled and was like, "Yeah." And it's, what do you do with that, Jesse? You know, what do you do with that for someone who's, you know, I operate in these two realities of, you know, the
Mhm.
very cerebral banking. We measure it, we shift it, we change it, we fire it, we hire it, we do whatever, and then suddenly we're you know, my other life is in this realm where, what is that? You
Yeah.
know, what is
How do you
that?
explain it? Yeah,
Yeah,
100% feel you. And
yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
sharing that because
No worries.
I I've had a very similar experience, and it was actually in my seminar where I met you, and
Right.
I think you were facilitating my session on your Pippa, and I had a huge release during my session, and
Mm,
at the end, during the integration relaxation, I connected with my father spirit
mm,
and got a message from my father directly, and came around for my session. The first thing I said was, "Did I fall asleep? Surely I
mm,
dreamt that," because I was discounting it immediately because I was like, "What just happened? What just
mm,
happened?" And it's like, because you're
mm,
not, it's almost like you said, being open so many times. It's like, how closed have we become to what else
mm,
is out there, the possibilities of life, the expansion of life, and
mm,
just starting. I don't know if we'll ever understand it, but just being open to knowing what possibilities are out there. So
yeah.
yeah, 100%. It's like, what do I do with this now?
Yeah, and
What's
and
next?
and maybe we're not meant to know, Jesse. You know, maybe we're not meant to know. Maybe that is part of it. Is just us discovering these other territories, and it's just they're a mystery. You know, that's what they are. But I could reel off. I could bore you to tears with stories, time and time and time again, of just things happening that I can't explain. You know, the number of people I've had come back after sessions, and I just saw my grandma, I just saw my dad, I just saw my whoever.
Mm,
They're here, I can feel them, you know, and who am I to judge? You know, who am I to judge what that means for anybody? But I can remember one of my first sessions when I was doing my case study shortly after the Italy experience, and I won't name names, but I had a client who I did the session for in a front room, and she came back and she looked at me and said, "That is the most relaxed I've. This is the most relaxed I've ever been in my life." I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." She said, "Yeah, I was. My grandma was just here, and she was squeezing my head. She's dead, you know." And then there was this angel, and la la la, and then she sort of stopped herself in mid-track as to what she was saying, and she looked at me and goes, "Does that happen to everybody?" And I was like, all I could say was, it takes a lot more to surprise me than it used to. It takes me a lot more to surprise me than it used to. And this is someone that I knew through my work. I knew in a very rational capacity, but for whatever reason, she asked, she wanted to do a breathing session, and I was like, yeah, why not? And
Mm-hmm.
she ended up
Mm-hmm.
having a similar, and this was me just fresh off the boat from Italy, I just was learning how to do this. And you have this window into these extraordinary experiences that in some ways it feels uncomfortable saying them because it doesn't do them justice, trying to classify and trying to make sense of them. Because as I was saying, sometimes just allowing and letting people to restore their own innate connection, it's all they need.
That's
Um,
it. Yeah,
mm,
restoring your own connection to self, right? And
yeah,
whatever is true for you is true for you.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I try and teach in all my work and all the workshops that I do is it's about the experience of the individual. How do we honor the experience of the individual and help people build trust in their experience? And that can be a very delicate art, right? I'm sure you've met people in this field that really, really dance on the fringes, but in the main, you've got, a lot of just very normal, ordinary people that are suddenly
Mm.
opened up to extraordinary states of consciousness, extraordinary states of awareness that, as I say, I didn't have language. I didn't have language for all this stuff that was going on. I'm suddenly in a room with, all these European people speaking a variety of languages, with varying degrees of trauma in their history, stuff that I wouldn't even dare to imagine. And yet, out of that, just extraordinary. It was just extraordinary. And my own process in that took me into inner dimensions that I don't really have language for, but it helped, and it helped, and it took me on that path. So that was, as I say, that was around, I was about 30 when that happened. So I was as some of my friends would say, I was coming out of my Saturn return. Life had just gone boom, and I was picking up the pieces, and yeah, there was enough in it. I just met loads like yourself, loads of amazing people, with a varying degree of history, life story, things that had happened to them, and yet, regardless of what it was, we would come together, we would all breathe, and there's, as you know, this bond that develops between people in those sessions, and something truly unique happens for one time only, and people seeing each other and reflecting each other, and there's a divine perfection to it all that is really hard to put into language. And
Oh yeah. And I fully agree. And I've seen more and more that when a group of people come together, every person is meant to be there for a reason. Like you said, the
yeah,
reflections, the mirroring, it's like every person comes together for that reason. They had to be there at that time for
yeah,
whatever that
it
purpose was. And it's just
it's
accepting.
yeah, it's weird, and I've been trying to get things set up over here. Obviously, we've had COVID, which has messed things up a little bit, and I've had a few other things going on. I don't know, explain that to some friends here. If we had a workshop fully booked, and then in the morning, half the people just cancel, and you're like, oh, okay. And then it happens for exactly the right reason, and the exact right people are there, and it unfolds in the way that it's meant to, and I'm left humbled and you know
Yeah.
going, okay, well, this is my job, just to trust it, just to trust whatever that's happening is happening, which is in us, through us, and it's all of us at the same time. So, but yeah, it's
Mm.
been an interesting transition back. I've had a few moments, Jesse, you'll maybe appreciate this, of sitting in front of groups of people and then looking at me like I'm from outer space. They're just like, what the hell just happened? Who are you? What are you talking about? Why was I just, remembering being 6 years
Yeah.
old, getting, and where am I now? And where did the last hour and a half go? And what's
So
happening?
true. I think when people make the decision to attend a workshop out of whatever curiosity they've got, they will
Mm,
never know till they've experienced it. And they've always said, I didn't expect that. I didn't
mm,
expect that. It's like,
mm.
good. Just be open because you never know. You
Yeah,
never know. So I
exactly.
love that you're doing face-to-face sessions again. I haven't yet, and I miss that. So it's amazing that you're connecting with people in that way. What I want to ask you is, at what point did you know that you wanted to then teach and share this? Because you've talked about going on this breathwork journey and wanting to know more about it because you were curious and it was for yourself and what you could
Mm,
learn. At
hmm
what point did you go, okay, I need to share this with people, or I want to train, I want to go on this journey? Was there even a point, or was it just
There
kind of a
was,
natural?
yeah.
Oh,
No, there
okay,
was.
okay.
There was a very clear moment, and yeah, let's just go for it. Hey, I'll just talk. So yeah, so my dad died. My dad died, and that experience of being with him through that process. Um, I think I've shared the story with you in a workshop before, Jessie. Of I came home, dad had bowel cancer, and yeah, he it was supposed to be small, treatable. They got it early. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Don't worry about it. I'll be fine. I'm just having my treatment. All that kind of stuff. Didn't want the kids to worry. All that kind of thing. And anyway, it turned out it wasn't okay, and it was probably a consequence of the chemotherapy and the other types of treatment that he had, the radiotherapy too. And so I was living in Scotland at the time. The deal that I'd made was I would live abroad, but if I ever needed to come home, if my parents ever got ill, then I would be home. And so I was fortunate to be able to come home, and once I got the call from my mum saying, it's time, I came back, and we'd gone through the whole alternative health thing and tried to, get him on the green smoothies and changing his diet and getting him really well hydrated, all that kind of stuff. And he was the kind of character that he was pretty stubborn. So trying to introduce him to the alternative side before he was ready was just not going to happen. But anyway, I came home, and we did some breath work together, and it really pushed my boundaries around the art of what's possible, having to go in again with an open mind, leave the science at the door, and just trust in the infinite possibility. And I can remember it was one of his sessions. He kind of looked up at me, and I think in hindsight, I look back and I was like, yeah, I think he knew he was in trouble.
Mm.
And but anyway, given I'd come back after living at the time for more than 10, maybe 12 years or 15 years at the time abroad, coming back to living with my folks was a pretty big bump. So I ended up going up to Bali for a retreat. I got in touch with one of the senior trainers up in Bali, and just said, listen, I'm happen to be on the other side of the world at the moment. I could really use an out. I'm living with my folks. My dad's got cancer. Blah 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 blah. She came back to me and said, yeah, sure. We're going to be running a seminar, but we're also going to be doing some workshops at something called the Spirit Festival, the Bali Spirit Festival. And anyway, I went up there, met a group of people my age for the first time. Just in the first, I was saying to you, I was younger. I was in most instances the only guy in the room, um, and suddenly I was around a group of people that were interested in what I was doing, and they were talking about. They'd been through the seminar process, and they could see the change in me, and they could see the experiences that I had, and how that was something that they might want to pursue. And it
Mhm.
was very different from me going back into the office on a Monday and people going, so what did you do on the weekend? And me going, well, I was in a
Yeah,
pool with a bunch of middle-aged women and everyone making sound and all this kind of stuff.
yeah.
So it was very different for me having that experience. And yeah, anyway, I had this really profound moment over there, and it was during one of the sessions, and the guy, his line, I remember during the session, his line was, "This moment is not a mistake. This moment is not a mistake." And that just stopped me. It just stopped me internally. And you're talking about trusting the wider process of everything suddenly became clear about my dad's journey with cancer, his relationship with my mother, the confusion in our family, the stress going on with hospitals and treatment and all this kind of stuff. It just whoosh, just exploded of this is all meant to be happening. This is meant to be happening because this is how it is. And I kind of had this real sense of peace after that. And I remember talking to the lady who was organizing the training, and I said to her, I said, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to. And I asked her, will you help me become a senior trainer in this work? And I remember she jumped up and gave me a big hug. I was like, "Oh, it's amazing!" Oh, all that kind of stuff. And it was a real profound, because it was twofold. One, because I'd seen it in myself, but also I got the opportunity to see a bunch of other breath schools and other types of breath work going on, and it showed me that what we'd been taught with transformational breath was really comprehensive, really,
Mm.
really grounded, really professional, really effective. Whereas what I was witnessing was a lot of other breathwork modalities were just start breathing and we'll see what happens, you know?
Mm.
And so it was this shift of, okay, well, my two worlds need to start to come together, you know? And that was my moment. I can remember looking out across the rice field in Bali and going, this is what I need to do. And so anyway, I came home and my dad had taken a turn and he'd kind of made the realization that the transfusions couldn't last forever, and even though he'd put up a good fight, he probably wasn't going to make it. And I shared with him that story, and I told him about how I'd met all these people, and that was super interested in my work, and I was like, this is what I want to do with my life, and blah 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 blah. And I remember he was sitting across the bench from me, and he looks at me and goes, Ross, do you understand? Like, none of this would have happened if I hadn't got sick, you know. And that was it. That was my experience into everything is as it is. You know, everything is as it is, and everything is as it's meant to be, and our job is to come into alignment with that. You know, and that was his gift. That was his parting gift to me. He gave me his blessing to be a breath worker. You know, and he was really proud of what I did. You know, and he's appeared, right? He's here. You know, whatever that means to anybody. You know, it's I've had too many stories, too many experiences of this kind of stuff going on, and as I say, it's like anything, you know, we can, as breath workers, we can sometimes sound a little bit too lucid about things, and we can talk about intense emotional experiences in ways people are like, whoa, that's really full on. But it's not so much like that, because it doesn't bypass you from the pain. It doesn't bypass from the fact that it just totally sucks that he died, and I would give anything to have him back.
Mm.
And yet, part of my maturation process was learning to accept that, you know, learning to accept that and as a breath worker, right, that he had his process, and you know, there was part of me, Jessie, was like praying for a miracle. Where's my miracle? Where's my ability to somehow affect what happens in the session? And that's like this exquisite paradox of breath work is there's nothing you can do. You know, there's nothing you can do, and yet you're doing everything to increase the possibility that something can happen, but you don't get to decide what that is. That's the soul journey of the individual that's experiencing this work. It's their path, and that was my dad's path, and I had to learn that was it was a little bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, strike me down and I'll become more powerful. You know, he kind of has a different kind of presence in my life now. But I'm still miss him every day, you know, but he was my spiritual guide, and he was the one who really normalized a lot of this stuff, and we could talk in great depth about things. So that's when that was very much, Jessie, it was like, how am I going to do this? You know, my dad's just died. I'm about to move back to the other side of the world, away from everybody over here that's still mourning and grieving. How is that going to work? Like, how do
Mm.
I, you know, how do I make this happen? And the answer is it unfolded. It unfolded, and lo and behold, here I am. You know, and but yeah, that was what I realized, is that it was such a gift to me. Without mincing words, it really did save my life in many ways. In many ways, and it was a gift that I wanted to share with other people, and that was kind of it. And it made me really happy. This work makes me really happy, and it's such a privilege to be with other people through that process and to share that with them. And now being in Australia, sharing it with other people, and as I say, I joke in some ways about, you know, people looking at me like I'm from outer space, but it really is, we're bringing in a different way of being into the world, right? And it's about now developing a critical mass of people who have exposure to this and understand that we have a lot more control over our nervous system than we've been taught. We have a lot more control over our emotional experience than we've been taught.
Mm.
But we have to appreciate that that is a messy process, and that learning to, you know, gosh, learning to feel emotions, Jessie, that's that's for the brave. That's for the brave, you know,
Right,
because it's
right.
it's yeah, to really go there, to really own our pain, to really go into the things that have shaped us, to understand our unconscious choices, to understand usually we're the architects of our own misery. You know, doesn't mean that other people are blameless, but usually there's something in there for us that's uncomfortable that we need to learn. And that was certainly the case in my life. It was, you know, I made the commitment. I was like, I've got to figure out my part in this. And I remember speaking of being the only guy in the room. I remember doing my 4A training down in Derby, And I was still kind of going undercover at this point. People at work didn't know what I was doing and all that kind of thing.
I
And I
love
can
it
remember,
undercover.
I can remember, I remember sitting in like the opening circle, and I'd had this dream. And this is again, gosh, maybe shouldn't bear my soul like this, but yeah, I had this dream the night before, and it was, yeah, it was the message was there is no around, there is only through, there is only through.
Mm.
And without a word of a lie, Jesse, the level of fear in me in that experience, to wake up in the morning, I had very clearly in my head I was going to go into the trainer, I was going to apologize, say, listen, I've had enough, I can't do any more. I'm leaving. I'm going to drive back up to Scotland. I'm going to get a ticket on the
Whoa.
way, and then I will be able to fly home to Australia, and then all my problems will be solved. It was that level
Oh,
of going
wow.
inside, of just being so afraid of what was inside me.
Mm. Yeah.
What was actually inside, and what was going to come out, and was that okay? And all these things,
Mm.
and this is in my early days of if we've been through trauma, Jesse, it's messy. There's no other way to describe it. It's one thing that actually that I find I get a pullback in today's kind of modern world of people talking about trauma in a sexy way. It's not, and
Mm.
anyone who's been through it and knows that experience, it's not, and it takes enormous courage to be integrated and to be present with the roots of our traumatic experiences. They're not, it's not a scoreboard. It's not something to brag about or to, dare I say, take photos of and put on Instagram. It's just not, that's not what this work is about. And the shadow of that is that can be really subtle layers of actually protecting ourselves from what's really going on underneath. And
Mhm.
I guess I share that story because it took life, and this is me learning how life works, right? Life had to take me away to somewhere where I couldn't run away from to be able to face into, and to have enough trust and compassion and faith in the people that were nursing me through that experience and helping me. And I can remember, I remember we did our creeping circle of death in that morning, and I was just sitting there going, "Oh, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk." And then it was the loving. So
Creeping
Russell,
circle
how
of death.
when people are like sharing with the group and it's kind of moving the way
Never,
around, and you're sitting there going, "Oh,
never heard
oh
it called
man."
that. Creeping circle of death.
Have you not? Okay. Well, I'm sure everyone can relate to that experience of, you're
Yeah,
sitting there going,
yeah,
"Oh, it's
yeah,
going to be my turn to talk, and I
yeah.
don't want to talk."
Fully
And
relate. Fully
anyway,
relate.
it wasn't the first time that it happened, but it came around, and they were like, "So Russell, how you doing?" And I just burst into tears, and it was like,
Mm.
I'm having a bad day. I'm just having a bad day. And this was years of pain coming out of me, Jesse. Years of pain, years of, and when I say pain, attempting to do the right thing, attempting to be disciplined, attempting to, have the difficult conversations at work, attempting to be a decent human being, all those kind of contractions and contorting myself into being who I thought I was supposed to be rather than having the courage to feel my feelings, and as I say, I don't mean that in a loose way. I mean it in the, there's a high price to pay for inappropriate sharing of feelings. There's a high price to pay for, careers can disappear like that if you say the wrong thing in an office environment. So, and that to me is in some ways has been that transition of those 10 years of giving less of a crap about what people think, but also life has needed to adjust because when we can be in situations in life where it does matter what people think. It does matter what our professional reputation is. It does matter what people believe us to be in a variety of capacities. So learning to be authentic, learning to work with our authentic selves, for me at least, has been a process. It's been a process. So, but yeah, I think back to that. It was looking at, like I'm saying to you now, I was in my mind, I was going to go. I was like, I can get home,
Mm.
I can be home in about 24 hours and everything will be fine. I hadn't thought any further past that. But lo and behold, we got back into the day, and I started to breathe some more and work through what was going on, and I got through it. But yeah,
Because you
that's and
made
that's
that
part of my.
choice, Russell. You made that choice and you were brave and open
Mm,
enough to go there. And that's why I say, anyone that works with their breath, any one of my clients, I say, you are an inspiration to me. I am in awe of
mm,
you because you are showing up and you're doing the work and
mm,
you're doing it because it's not
mm,
just sitting down, breathing for relaxation and stress. Yes, it's really effective for that to get you through those moments. But when you practice this breath work and allow yourself to go deeper into it, that's when you can start to really unlock the root causes of that
mm,
stress and anxiety and really get to it and
mm,
go through those confronting moments, those confronting feelings,
mm,
and learning how to feel again. Because it could have been a whole lifetime where we're like, we're not allowed to feel that, or we can't let people see that. It's that judgment, or whatever it is, and then that becomes our normal way of living, right? So
mm,
it's amazing that, like you said, we can now understand the breath a bit, well, start to understand it, but work with our breath to start to
mm,
open up and feel and see what that is and really allow that authentic self to come forth because
mm,
that is what, I find people fascinating because we are fascinating, every single one of us. But the fact that we think we have to compare ourselves to others or fit into a box or live life a certain way still blows my mind and makes me quite cross. But it's like that's what we've learned. So by
mm,
using our breath to be able to undo all of that and start to explore and be open blows my mind. And I absolutely love your story, Russell. And I thank you for being so open with it because it's been a real journey. It really has,
mm.
hasn't it?
Yeah, this is the light version. It's it's been wild at times. It's been really wild, and but the deeper truth to it, Jesse, is that's what life is, right? That's what life is.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, it's how we generate meaning in our lives is being present through our
Mm.
experience. You be with that experience, whatever that happens to be. And so, for example, with my dad passing, the meaning from that was the connection I had with my family, the love that was just so lavished upon us by family and friends and people who are really there for us. There for me personally. I've got some amazing friends that were, you know, and so breath has taught me gratitude. It's taught me to really live and love the full human experience. And yeah, that wherever it's going to take us, who knows, right? But
Yeah.
but that certainly it was just funny when you were asking me about my journey. I was like, I've never really told anybody about those 10 years of my life, even though I've met people at different stages along the way. And but yeah, part of the journey with it now is how do we share this with people in a way that the right people connect into it and then they understand almost intuitively, like you did, right? You were like, yeah, this is what I need to be doing, and whoosh, suddenly we're away. And um, yeah, for
I
me,
think
that's really what it's about.
a part of that is that I think people will come to breathwork when they're ready. I
Mm,
think that, along my path before I found breathwork, I tried a number of different modalities, always looking for something. I knew I was looking for something, I didn't know what.
mm,
And when I found breathwork, wow, that's when it opened up for me. But I often think
mm,
if I'd found it beforehand, would I have tried it and gone, oh, this is not for me? Because I wasn't quite
mm,
there yet. And I wouldn't
mm,
have connected with it. So I think
mm,
it does come to you. So it's almost like we just need to keep doing what we're doing, keep talking about it, keep sharing it, keep living it. And then
mm,
those people will come when they're ready to know more. And I
mm,
feel like it's, we are sharing this as it's something, well, not new because it's been around forever, but I think that for me, I feel like it's just teaching us how to come back to ourselves and unlearn everything we've learned. In this day and age, particularly this last, what, year or so, whatever's happened, how we live life, everything is accessible straight away. We're always stimulated, we're always switched on, we're always, looking out and in our heads and we've forgotten to connect with ourselves, our bodies, the earth, and be here. So this is why breath work, I think, is becoming more popular these days, because I think we're getting to that point. People are starting to go, this doesn't feel good.
mm,
What, there's got to be more out there. How do I not do this? How do I find myself again? How do I connection? We're all looking for connection, and we think we're looking for it outside, right? But like you said so many times, it's all within. It's just got to come
mm,
right back here. But that's
mm.
scary because there's a lot of stuff in there that we don't want to look at right now or ever. We'll rather get on a plane and forget
Yeah.
about it, which
Well,
is what I did for a long time.
you've heard my story of wanting to run away. It's
Yeah.
it's real, and but I do think, Jesse, I think we are. we're moving into a new era as well. You know, we're moving into a new era,
Mm.
and I think we're kind of reaching that critical mass or that critical capacity for a lot of people who are just going, no, I can't, you know, and they're getting to, you know, I just got, once I got there faster, I just got there through a different set of circumstances, you know. But to really be able to offer hope to people when they don't have any hope, you know, and that was really the truth for me. This was something that gave me a shot at a brand new life, you know, and it really has. And but the experiences, as I say, taking people through that journey over the course of a week, you know, you've got that knowing, you see them at the beginning and you know that they're going to be completely different in 6 days time, you know, and sometimes in individual sessions, they're going to be different in an hour. At least they're going to have something to work with. They're going to have something that can allow them to take that next step, you know, and I think that's the greatest gift of this. It's magic. It really is magic. And
Yeah.
anybody who doesn't believe that hasn't experienced it, you know. And again, I say magic. It's outside our ability to make sense of. I've listened to some really smart people talk about, you know, the change of our neurochemistry and our biochemistry with each inhale and exhale and la 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 la. They still can't explain the experience of somebody connecting with somebody who's passed away, you
Yeah.
know, and someone going, oh, well, that's just an illusion in their mind. It's like, okay, well, that's what you think. Fine, you know. I've also seen illusions in people's mind create extraordinary healing and peace of mind for people. So if we call it an illusion, we call it an illusion. I don't care. But
Yeah.
it really is about and that's part of my goal, right? Is how do we create safety for people to feel what they need to feel, to be themselves, and to accept themselves. And I think that's part of the breathwork path. You know, we're taught to love people exactly as they are, love them as if they're yourself. You know, there's deep spiritual truth in that, and obviously it needs to be well boundaried and it needs to be healthy. And there's a therapeutical contract, I guess, if you will, when it comes to facilitated sessions and that type of thing.
Hmm.
But it's just so far beyond that it's hard to even put into words, Jesse. You know,
I
it's
know. I know. Well, if there
so
is
yeah.
anyone that wants to know more or to work with you, what are
Mm.
you doing? How are you working with people at the moment? How can people reach you or work with you? Tell us about what you're doing now.
Okay, so yeah, you mentioned at the outset connectedbreath.com.au. That's how to find me.
Yeah.
I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, learning the dark art of social media. Jesse, you're holding my hand through the process, which I appreciate. So in Perth at the moment, we've got a little bit of lockdown fever happening. My next workshop is a week today, so that's going to be dependent on whether lockdown restrictions
Are you back
drop.
in
So
lockdown
that's
in Perth as well? I didn't realise.
Yeah, I think we finish up at midnight tonight or something like that. But there's
Oh,
all sorts
right.
going on in Sydney at the moment, so who knows? So
Yeah.
that's been a little bit of a tricky one because it's kind of sucked the energy out of, we've got a regular group that, when I say regular group, it's monthly down in North Fremantle. So anyone get in touch and they're most welcome to come along if they want to experience what this is about. I do one-to-one services. One-to-ones is really, it's what I love the most about this work is working on a one-to-one basis. So I offer those at my home. So again, you can, if you're in Perth or yeah, that's probably as far as our net can cast at the moment. If you're in Perth and you want to come and experience it, you can reach out. I'm also doing one-to-one work online. So if anybody wants to experience a session online, then again, drop me a line. We've had some amazing experiences of people working virtually, and I also run a twice weekly online call, which we've got going. When was it, Jesse? Was it March last year?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
been
it
well
was.
over a year. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're almost having our 70th session. So if anyone's experienced breath work before and they want to be part of a group, we get together twice a week just to connect our breath and to have an experience, then that's an invitation as well. It's more directed at people who are experienced in breath work, but we're really open to anybody who's interested and wants to experience more. And yes, also the other thing, public service announcement. I'm going to be working at how to describe it. So, Women's in Business Day, Mind Your Own Business or Mind Your Business, which is
Interesting.
a friend of mine here, Elsa Mitchell. So I think it's Elsa underscore Mitchell underscore. And she's doing that on the 24th. So there's going to be a day of sort of business development stuff. And then I'm going to finish the day off with the breath session to help everybody integrate the experience. So yeah,
Wonderful.
that's the best way to get in touch. And again, just if anyone wants to reach out and learn more about the breath, then let me know. It's going to be like realistically trainings and stuff. I don't know, Jesse. I don't know what your thoughts are on it with COVID when we'll be up and running again. It's but yeah, as soon as we can. My vision had always been Bali retreats, so getting people from Australia up and experiencing transformational breathing or connected breath work in Bali. So we'll see how that unfolds over the next couple of years
Well,
too.
I am there as soon as it happens, Russell. I'm still trying to get out to Oz, but yeah,
Indeed.
keep us posted. Keep us posted. And anyone, I would highly recommend working with Russell because I think you're incredible. You had such a big impact on me in my seminar. I think you're a huge part of my introduction to breathwork as well, which is why I'm so excited to have you on to share your story. So I love your way with the breath and understanding. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. I did see some comments coming through, so I'm just going to go back and see what they were before we come out of this. And thank you all for joining live. So Breathe and Be You says, love Russell, a great asset in the breathwork community. Diana says, hello from the pirate ship in Brisbane. And she says, we are the fairies. So we are the fairies, she says. Love that. Love that. So, oh, I've come out of it. But yeah, so thank you all for joining us live. And thank you, Russell, for giving us your time. I've absolutely loved this. And I just think that there's real power in it. And is there anything else that you would like to say to anyone who's maybe watching this and hasn't tried breathwork but is curious about it or anything at all? Is there anything you'd like to say to them?
Um, Hello. um, yeah, no, I think it's such a personal journey with breathwork, Jesse. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
such a personal experience,
Mhm.
and it's not for everybody, and it's just not. It's just I'm not one of these people who thinks that everybody should do this, and if we all do it, then suddenly the world will be miraculously better. It's more complicated than that. But if you have the curiosity and the um, I guess the just the yearning to is there anything bigger out there? Is there
Mm.
anything more to this life? Then breathwork offers real answers. It offers real answers, and those answers are usually more questions, but they are really answers. And
Mhm.
so yeah, reach out if you've got the opportunity to work with someone like Jessie or the guys in the UK. There's loads of amazing facilitators over that way, and there's loads of people doing other kinds of breath work as well. So the most important thing is connect with someone that you resonate with, that works for you, because it's all about that feeling of safety and that feeling of I can trust this person with my personal experience, and you can feel that. That's not something you need to tell people. They either feel it or they don't, and so it really is just trust your own intuition, trust your own judgment around, who you share yourself with. But if you have any desire to get on the journey, then there's plenty of us out here, and you're welcome to join us. And we can't really guarantee anything, but it's a lot of fun. So it's yeah, I think that's probably where I leave it. And probably the last thing, Jesse, is like breathwork 101. This moment, you can change how you feel in this moment by changing how you breathe, and that it sounds so simple, but that's a life-changing piece of information. If you have the awareness that you can stop, you can breathe in for 5 and out for 5 minutes, and you'll feel different. That is one for if everybody in the world knew that, the world might just be a little bit of a different place. So yeah, there's a whole world of breath work out there, guys. So if you're interested, find people that you resonate with and go and learn from them, and you know, make the most of your life. I think that's what it comes down to. So yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much, Russell. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who's joined us live. I'm going to save this in the IGTVs. Do reach out if you've got any questions. Let us know if anything resonated with you, if you want to know more. And Russell, I will leave you to enjoy your evening. Thank you so much for your time and hopefully see you very soon.
Good stuff, Jesse. Thanks for everything you're doing, hey? And
Thank
yeah,
you.
keep in touch. Looking forward to welcome you to Australia when we can.
I'm trying. I'm trying. See you soon, Russell.
Good
Bye.
stuff. Cheers, Jesse. Take care, everybody.